really nicely into strips, and cut off some strips, and then you can cut your strips into little pieces. It doesn't really matter how big they are, but about this big, like a little bigger than a postage stamp. And just go ahead and start ripping. And I've got a few examples of some paper mache to show you, just to show you the possibilities of what you can do with it. And this is really sweet. This is a mask, and it's paper mache, and you can kind of see that it's got some curve to it. It was you can form it over a bowl or so forth, and then you have these. There's a certain thickness to these other features. You can just take a piece of cardboard and curve it into a shape, and tape it on, and paper mache over that. So that's a nice example. And these are actually not ones that I made, but here's another one. And this is, you've probably seen, there we go. You've probably seen these in little gift shops, these sweet little lightweight boxes. And they're often made in India. Some of them are made in Russia, and they have lids that fit very nicely. And they're actually paper mache. So this is something that if you live in a culture where there are not a lot of easily accessible materials, you know, recycled paper is available, and you can actually make something really lovely out of them. So one of the things that we need to do to get the paper mache is basically it's paper and it's paste. So we're going to make the paste. And I am starting with some cheap flour. Now, you can use other kinds of flour, but I keep a stock of store brand flour. Mine is, where did I put it? Mine was Value Time. I don't know if that's Tops or all these or whose that is. It's cheap flour. There's a difference. Your quality flours like King Arthur, Gold Medal have a higher protein content. They don't go to glue as easily. So if you are using a good quality flour, use less water with it. So I have already measured out, and let me see, we're gonna look at the Jenny's iPad one right now. And I have measured out 2 tablespoons full of flour, and that's just with my regular measuring spoon. And I have here a half cup of water. So 2 spoons of flour and a half cup of water. Now, you don't have to measure it. You just want to make it 1 to 4. So if you want, and you've got any little thing around the house, like a little cup like this, you can make 1 of flour and 4 of water, or 3 of water if you're using King Arthur or Gold Medal, a good quality flour. So I've got this, and I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to just pour this in here. Put that out of the way. And I've got a fork now, and basically I just want to whip this up because I want this to get nice and smooth. I could use a whisk if I wanted to, but I'm using a small amount, so I'm just going to use a fork. Now, if you have a microwave, we can do this in the microwave, and if you don't have a microwave, it's fine. You can put it in a saucepan and you can cook it. And just the way you would make pudding, gravy, whatever, you just put it on, and then you just heat it up, and it starts to thicken. Just imagine if you had gravy and you've got meat drippings and some flour, it's going to thicken into gravy. If you got pudding, you got to have some sugar, some vanilla, some flavoring in there, and you're going to thicken it into pudding. We're going to do it in the microwave. I'm going to do it in the microwave. I don't know how you're going to do it, but what I'm going to do is I'm going to zap this at 30-second increments, and in between I'm going to stir it. So I'm going to show you, in the meantime, you've got several things you can be working on. You can be taking your little bits of paper and cutting these, tearing them actually, and you also have some tissue paper. Choose the colors you want to use. And as you see, I've got a couple different piles of tissue paper torn. So you can do that. So you can tear some paper, you can tear some tissue paper. And while I'm going to show you how to make this glue, and I'll be right back. So it's zapping for 30 seconds right now. And you can get tearing, and then I'm going to show you how this is going, and then I'll give you a chance to get out and get to your kitchen and make your glue too. But we're going to get everything organized, and I'm just going to demonstrate it before I want you to get to leave. Okay, here's what this looks like so far. And it's starting to look a little cloudy. So I'm just going to stir it back up and put it in for 30 seconds again. Now, every microwave is different. So I have actually a tiny little microwave, so mine's going to be a little slower. So if you have one of these really big heavy duty ones that is very powerful, you'll find that it goes really quickly. I look like I have a chat, so I'm just going to see. Oh, okay, great. Here it is again, another 30 seconds. This time when I go to stir, do you see what happens? It's starting to turn into goop. So I want to make sure that I've got that really stirred in. So I'm going to whisk that up. I don't want lumps. And that's why I'm only doing this in very short increments. So I'm going to stir that all up. So now what I have is it's smooth, pretty much. Oh, get rid of those lumps. It's pretty much smooth now, but it's thicker. It's a little thicker than it was. All right, so let's give it another 30 seconds, and this is really going to look different. I hear ripping. That's good. We've got ripping going on, and we've got some nice piles of regular newsprint and different colored of tissue paper. The nice thing about newsprint is it's generally free and accessible and available. If you don't have to have blank stuff, I just am recycling some that was sent in a package. Okay, here it is now, and you'll notice it's really thick. So now I'm gonna really stir that up. And this time, when I get that really stirred up, it's not going down to a watery thing. It's staying pasty and thick. So that's good because it'll continue to thicken a little bit as it cools. If I wanted it thicker, and that's just a personal choice, I could put it in for another 15 seconds and let it cook a little more, or I can leave it like this. I'm going to keep, as it cools every once in a while, I'll come over to my fork and I will keep stirring that up. So I'm going to go back to what I was saying about the newsprint. You can use plain newsprint if you get it in a, something that was packed and sent to you sometimes, but you can use regular newsprint that's got print on it. But the ink that's used in newspapers is generally very wet. You notice how you can get your hands all smudgy. Excuse me. So put your newspaper away for a couple weeks and let the ink dry. Oh, okay, Valerie, what are we making? We're making a paper mache, a little container. So we're just getting all of the pieces ready. So you've got, we're gonna have our paper, our tissue paper torn, and we're going to make our glue. But the last thing that you can work on is you should have something in your kit that's like this. It's a thin piece of paper and it's a pattern, and you'll have some kind of cardboard. Some of you have 2 pieces of cardboard, so you're going to have to cut this in pieces and put it together. It's going to be a little square shaped vase, and you've got 3 options. You've got the blue, the black, or the green. And wherever you cut, if you're cutting on the green, always use the green or the black or the blue, whichever one. Just choose one color and stick with it. It'll be a matter of the shape. If it's straight up, or it's wider or wider, like the green is going to be wider and the blue is going to be the narrowest. So I'm going with the black. Well, what I'm going to do is I'm just going to cut the template out on a square, and I've taped it onto a piece of cardboard. And now I'm going to cut one of those out of cardboard. Okay, so that's another thing that can be done. So you're going to have all this kind of prep work to do, which is piles of torn paper and some glue and a piece of cut cardboard cut to the template. If you're creative and you want to make your own kind of form to do paper mache on, you don't have to use my template that I gave you. I just thought this would be easier if we're kind of all doing the same thing. And so just to show you what that's gonna look like. So I now have this cut out, and I can untape the template now. So those are the things to work on this, cutting this out and tearing these and going ahead and making your glue. Again, the glue is 1 part flour to 4 parts water. Even a spoonful or 2 spoonfuls of flour is plenty to get started with, and you'll have this this nice pasty kind of stuff.
Can you reuse the flour?
Reuse it? No. You want to use it just one time. So because once it's wet, and then it'll get moldy. So if I think as I recall, you guys are gluten-free, so I gave you a little envelope of flour. You don't have to use all of that flour. Just you can use a spoonful or 2 is plenty. and whatever container, like if you want to use one of these and say, okay, one of those of flour and 4 of water, and use the same container, and you're all set. So I will let you people go. So those of you who are not in your kitchen, you can go to your kitchen, you can make your glue or your paste and come back, and in the meantime, cut your shape out and get all of these other things prepared. And I'll see you very soon. And I'll show you the next. It's kind of nice to have a pretty good repertoire of this stuff ready, so that you don't, once your hands get all gluey and sticky and everything, you don't have to keep cleaning your hands to get the paste. Which is one more thing that you may want to get. I took a hand towel and I got it wet on the end or a little damp on the end and dry on the other end, so that I can easily just, wipe off my hands and dry my hands without continually going to the sink. So you may want to pull a towel, a partially damp towel for your hands. Super. Okay, now, once we have this part done, all right, and we've all got this much, what we're going to do, and it's pretty easy, and you can see on your, on your original template, there were these little lines right here, and that's where you're going to fold it. They won't be on your piece of cardboard, but it will be pretty obvious, because if you fold this as far as it goes, you'll get a nice fold there. So I'm just going to go ahead and fold each of these pieces in. So it's just going to look like this, and all we want to do is it's going to be a little container. It's almost going to look like a little Chinese takeout container. But I'm just going to get a little bit of tape, and you can use any kind of tape you have. There's a little weird thing of masking tape that's in your kit, but it might be a little hard to peel off. So if you have other tape, I would go ahead and use something else. If you don't, use a butter knife or something to get some of that peeled. I just need to trim mine a little bit because I didn't cut it evenly. Now you may notice that I didn't go crazy with the tape. I just put a little strip on each one just to hold it in place, which is really sufficient, because this is paste too, so this is going to also hold it together. So I'm going to have everybody go ahead and get your little containers, boxes, vases, whatever you want to call them, tape, and I'll just make sure everybody has those. Okay, so we're all set.
Thank you.
Thank you. No problem. All right, so now the basic process of paper mache is that the little fibers in paper are going to mesh together from the torn edges. So that's why we tear it instead of cutting it, because that helps that helps it stay together a little bit. And those uneven edges can look a little, create some charm when we go to put it together. We're going to put a coating of pasted paper shreds on the outside and on the inside, because the weight of paper, if you get paper wet on one side, it starts to warp. But if you get it equally wet on both sides, you'll even out that warping tendency. And so that'll get it working better. The paper that you use is going to make a difference in how long you put it into the paste. So newsprint is very absorbent and it'll soak up that paste very quickly. So that's why we're using it, because it's very easy to use and doesn't take a long time. But if you use something like copy paper, it's not as absorbent. It'll take longer to absorb that paste. So we're using things that are going to soak up that very quickly. You could use paper bags, and they're going to take a little longer because they're heavier. You could use magazine pages, and again, they're glossy, so they're going to take longer. So we're going to use things that are going to be very quickly absorbing this paste. And so basically what I'm doing is I'm just going to poke that down into the paste. Right, this gets messy. My hands are messy already, but I took this, I dunked it down, I lifted up, but you can already see, turn my light on, you can probably already see that this is very, it's very floppy, it's very wet, and compared to a dry piece, the dry piece looks opaque. The wet piece kind of looks transparent. So when it's transparent, that's got that paste soaked right in. So that happened very, very quickly. Now I'm going to just take this and I'm going to put it right into my container. And I'm just going to smooth it down. I'm going to put it down into, the corner. So I'm going to kind of start at the bottom and work my way up. And again, I put this in here. You know, I flop it, flip it, flop it, and then I kind of squeegee it out with my fingers, and I kind of wipe some extra paste on the side. It is a very messy process, but nice thing is it's only flour and water. It's something that you could eat, and it's something that dissolves very quickly in water, so the cleanup is actually surprisingly easy. So I'm going to just start with a few pieces, and I'm going to start with those corners, the inside corners. Again, wiping off my fingers. So I'm just going to show you where I am right now. And what I've done is every one of these corners, I put some paper in the corner, and then I put paper in the bottom. So I've got that whole bottom part done. The next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to start working up the sides, and I'm going to make sure that I go across that join, and I'm going to go all the way around the inside. That would be the next step. So go ahead and do your corners and your bottom, and then start working up. And you'll find it's amazing. You know, there's like, it takes very, very little material to actually do this. It doesn't, it seems like, you know, it's really, you're just using a couple spoonfuls of flour and a little bit of scrap paper, and you're going to have something pretty cool. Now, one thing that you're going to notice is your first time through, you may still see a lot of the markings and so forth from your cardboard. But one thing that's going to happen is remember that this tissue paper is wet and transparent, and that when it's dry, it's much more opaque. So that's something to keep in mind, that you'll probably have a lot less show through than you think that you do. Now, one thing that's happening, and I'm just going to move this over here so I can show it. I have this side down. I've got one little hole. So I don't know if everybody can see that. I've got one little area that's not covered, and I want to make sure that I've got some paper in there and that every little hole was covered. So I don't want that cardboard coming through at all anywhere. So you want to make sure you have 100% coverage, even if you're putting another layer on a lot of it. You just want to make sure it's all covered. The other thing that happens when you get up to the top, you're going to get a piece of paper and you're going to just put it right over, wrap it right over the edge. So I'm going to take it like this, and I'm just going to wrap it right over the edge. And that's going to get start some bulk on your edge, which you want, so that it has more layers of paper, because when we come from the outside, we'll fold over again, and your edge will be a little thicker. All right, so just keep working up all of the edges, and then right over, flip right over the edge. You get to a point where you have so much paste on your fingers that you can start coating this without even dipping it in the glue, because your fingers have got enough glue on them. Mine are getting to that point. If your paper isn't becoming transparent, then it doesn't have quite enough glue on it. It is sticky. It is sticky. It is wet, but it shouldn't be like dripping wet. It should be, it's almost kind of getting a little floppy. So you may notice, like I am noticing, that as I get one side wet, it is starting to warp. It's starting to create a curved top. And that's something that I'm going to have a choice about. And I'm going to say, do I want a curved top? Am I going to kind of continue to pull at that top so that it is curved? Or am I going to kind of straighten it out as I do the outside? So when I do the second layer on the outside, I'm going to find that this starts to balance things out. So I've got mine done on the inside and around the top. And I'm now taking a look at it, and I can now take my fingers and kind of pull at it a little bit if I want it to be a little more curved. I can make it a little more curved, right? It's just a matter of kind of, poking at it, puckering at it, etc. if I want it. If I want it straight, I can do the same thing. I can come back and I can just sort of, poke things into shape, and I can form it a little flatter. So it's just a matter of how you want it. The second thing that's going to happen is, now, once you've got this first layer, I want you to just kind of really take a good look, hold it up to the light, see if there are any areas where you have a little hole, and I look like I might have a little hole there. And if you do, go ahead and put that other, an extra piece of paper in. Even if it's a tiny little hole and you're putting in a big piece of paper, that's fine. You just want to make sure that that's completely covered and there are no holes at all. And if you have, like I have some writing on there, I'm just gonna go ahead and put another layer over that writing, just as a extra precaution to give another layer. Now you can put as many layers as you want, but we're gonna keep it really simple tonight. And we're just gonna go with one layer of the newsprint because we've got cardboard under here. That's giving it stiffness. We're gonna be fine with that. So we've got one side done, maybe. Maybe you're still working on that. If you are, it's fine. And now we're gonna come to the other side and we're gonna make sure that we have that coated paper. We're gonna start with the bottom and we're gonna bring it all the way down the sides, and we can flip it around the edges. So as you do the bottom, make sure when you do, you don't just do one side and another side, make sure that you have a piece. I'm gonna get a nice, really pretty transparent one here. And I'm gonna take one and I'm gonna go right over that edge. So that's gonna reinforce it. It's gonna be better to have one that's over the edge where these are taped together. And basically that acts as another piece of tape, all right? You really wouldn't have to tape it. The tape is really just to hold it in place for your benefit while you work on it. Now, if you are working with a heavier paper, for instance, you're working with a paper bag and they're torn up, you can tear a bunch of paper bag pieces and put them into your paster and let them soak for a little bit. Because we're using this thin newsprint, we don't really want it to soak because it's getting to that place that we like it very quickly, just by dipping it in. Now we're making a very simple form, so we're kind of all going at the same pace, more or less, and we're all doing the same thing. But once you start to do this on your own, you can devise any kind of shape or form that you would like to do this upon. You can construct your own cardboard, any kind of shape that you would like to construct. And if you don't like to construct stuff, you can actually just, you could do this over an oatmeal tin. You could do it over something that already exists. But personally, I like to make up my own, make my own form so that it's unique and nobody says, oh, I bet you did that over an oatmeal tin. I think this is a very, once you get the hang of it, it's a very meditative kind of thing. You're doing it and every piece is different. You're kind of fitting a puzzle, but there's really no right or wrong. And there's a lot of comfort to that. not having a right or wrong, and just, you know, just fitting these things together, and you're using your hands and getting a little messy, which is, I think, good for the soul. I think one thing that I am doing is I am really working, I'm working that paste into the paper. So I'm making sure that it's really transparent. So you don't want to rush it too much to the point where your paper isn't transparent and the paste is not soaked into the paper. So you do want to make sure that it's really soaked in. And Valerie, did you go back and check for little holes and put little extra bits of paper where you need to, if there's any spot that's not completely covered?
Yes, but there are some areas that are thinner than others.
That's fine. Yeah, we just want to make sure that everywhere has at least one layer. And we want to make sure that as you came from the inside, and I'm just going to show you up and around and over, then as you come from the outside, you're going to do the same thing. You're going to come in and go inside, so that you've got, those extra layers on the rim. All right, so now what we have this shape, this vessel, this container, whatever you want to call it, and it's completely covered with the paper on both sides. So we've got 2 layers of paper and the cardboard in between, and it's still pretty gluey. It's still pretty thick, whatever. So typically you may put several layers of paper mache, let it dry in between. It takes several days and so forth. We're going to do this all in one, and then you let it completely dry, and then you're going to paint it. We're not going to paint it. We're going to paint it with tissue paper. So here's the fun part, is now I can just take these little pieces of tissue paper, and these practically disintegrate when they hit the paste. So I'm going to go and put this in, and I don't have to add any paste to them at all. All I have to do is take that dry tissue paper and stick it on top of this wet paste, and it's going to join. That's going to be enough paste for it to join in. And it's also going to solve the problem like that Valerie has, is it's really kind of goopy sticky. Once you put the tissue paper in, it's not going to be so goopy sticky. So you can use as many or as few colors as you want. And you can do an ombre kind of thing, get a couple, you probably either have a couple different warm colors or a couple different cool colors. If there's anywhere like right here where I had a lot of overlap and it's not getting this, I can just take the glue and just put that glue right, or that paste right on top of it, and just work it through, and voila, it's got plenty of paste to paste that in. So this is really kind of a magical step where it starts to look more finished very quickly, very instantly, by just putting these in. And if you don't like getting your fingers yucky, well, good for you, because this is the part where your fingers are not quite as messy. Go ahead, folks, and do that by combining any kind of colors that you want, and make it all the same or make it all different. And again, if you overlap it a little too much and it's the paste is not coming through, take a tiny little bit of paste on your finger and just coat that. You don't necessarily have to have it everywhere this time, but where you don't have it, you're going to see that newsprint color coming through. The other thing is some people find they like a textured kind of thing, so it's okay to take your newsprint and kind of crinkle it, let it crinkle up a little bit instead of keeping it smooth, and you'll get a little bit of that crinkle texture coming through. Now, the first layer, the cardboard and the pasted newsprint are basically a structural layer. The tissue paper isn't really giving you a lot of structure. It's basically just giving you color. I've got one that I'm going to overlap a lot, so I'm putting it on with my fingers, but I don't want to dip that. I don't want to dip that tissue paper into my bowl like I could do the other time, because it's just going to make a mess. It's just going to disintegrate. Now, the other thing with this is, because this is not structural, we talked about the meshes and the fibers so that it's torn, and the two pieces of torn paper, those soft edges just kind of mesh into one another. That's really not the case with the tissue paper. I mean, they do mesh, but it doesn't really matter because it's just a decorative layer. It's not a structural layer. So if you want to, you can go ahead and use some pieces of the tissue paper straight the way they are, and you could just make a, you can just put it on there like that and put a ribbon of color, just laying it on, and it does not have to have that torn edge if you don't want to. I like the torn edge, so even though there are some cut edges on my tissue, I'm making sure that I'm getting the torn edges sticking up so that that's what we see. But that's where your personal choice and your personal aesthetics come into play. You do it the way you like it, do it the way it makes sense to you. This is, by the way, this is my own technique for this. So this is not a technique that you are likely to see in a book. I'm not going to say you won't, because it is certainly possible that someone else, came up with the same idea. And I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to leave a layer, just thought of that, leave a layer of newsprint in between the blue and the dark blue and the light blue. All right, so we've got a few minutes left, and I think everybody's got the gist of how to do this. And even if you're not done, we only have 10 minutes. So I want to show you this last little thing, and I'm going to go ahead and make sure I have at least one side done so that I can show you this other little fun technique. I have this one side done and I've got kind of a 3-color thing going on there. But it's all, you know, fairly flat. And we already talked about crumpling the tissue if you wanted to get some texture, but you can do some other things too to get some other texture. I just took a little bit of, little piece of color, tissue paper, and now I'm just going to crumple it up into a little ball. And a little bit of glue on there. And I can put it, you know, stick that right on there. And I can make these little dots. And I want to cover them, so I'm not going to worry too much about, you know, what the color is going to be. But I'm going to take another little light blue one, and I'm just going to put right over that. And the nice thing is a little bit of that yellow shows through. And I'm just going to carefully kind of tuck with my fingers around it. And I get a little bit of a 3-dimensional dot, all right? So I can put 3-dimensional dots all the way around them if I want to. The other thing I can do is I can make rope with tissue paper. It's pretty easy to do. And you've already got this cut for you in a strip. And I'm going to start at the top, and I'm just going to start basically just twisting. And now I can just twist that top and just kind of keep, you know, I'm basically rubbing my thumb against my forefinger and twisting it. And my hands are a little bit damp, and I really think that helps. So you just twist all the way down. And now at the ends, you want to make sure that you get them really nicely twisted. And now you come back up through, because you have some areas that are not quite as tightly twisted. So come back through, twist them a little more tightly. And now you have this pretty cool rope. And again, you could use that rope right on the edge to create an extra thick line. And we're just going to basically imagine that it's there. And then we're just going to take I don't want too much tissue paper at once, but I'm just going to use my fingers and get this very barely damp, which is all you need with tissue paper. Hold that in place. And wrap that over. And now you have a kind of a extra heavy 3-dimensional cord on the top. And you can't see it real well on the iPad, but when you see it in person, you'll see that it actually has some nice dimensionality and a little bit of transparency, which is nice too. You know, you can kind of, you're mixing colors as you're doing this. So you've got a little bit of a spring green in there in addition to the blue. And it can just kind of keep, you know, you can just keep that going and just, you know, right around the other edges. So those are 2 more little fun things that you can add. It doesn't have to be at the edge. You can add them along here too. So for instance, I could add it like this, and it could curve, it could zigzag, whatever. And once I have that in the place that I want, I can just take, you know, a little bit of paste on it and paste it on. And to hold it in place, I can take a little bit of tissue paper and just go right on top of that. And a little tricky, but you know, use your fingers to just kind of go right into the edges. And now you've got this, you know, three-dimensional kind of little shape, and you've got a little bit of transparency, a little bit of other color coming through too. So those are a couple other little fun things that you can do if you want to. That's a little extra advanced, so you don't have to have them on there. The nice thing about this is you can change your mind, and all you have to do is just, you know, move things around, and you can say, you know, I really don't want that. Well, you don't have to have it. So it's pretty nice. This is a very, very you know, basic beginner thing, but yeah, there's a lot of things you can do with this, and you know, you can really play with it. And those who are local and those who are not really, there's some nice books on paper mache. So I believe we might have some in the library system. So